My name is Riley. I am 31. I have spent most of my adult life quietly organizing other people's chaos. Numbers, bills, schedules, they were my comfort. In my family, that made me invisible but indispensable. The first Sunday of October felt ordinary, wet with the drizzle that always comes early to my city in the Midwest. The smell of coffee mixed with rain on the pavement, and I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was Skylar, my younger sister, her name lighting up the screen. I'm quitting my job. You'll support us while I find myself. No question mark. No hint of doubt. Just a statement. As if she had already imagined a cushion underneath her every misstep. I spit out the toothpaste. Rinsed. Wiped my reflection off the mirror. And typed deliberately, not my problem. I hit send. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't cruel. I was precise. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Mo, my mother, banned from Thanksgiving until you co-signed Skylar's $1 million studio loan. I stared. The words hung in the air. Absurd. Impossible. And somehow familiar. I laughed softly. A small private sound I hadn't made in years. Relief, perhaps. Recognition that the trap had finally been identified. Likely both. I opened my accounts and began untangling every shared payment, the phone plan, the streaming subscriptions, the car insurance, Daisy's veterinary bills. All of it. 43 missed calls piled up on my screen, 17 from Mo, 8 from Finn, 12 from Skylar, 6 unknown. The last family dinner I had attended was a month ago. I remembered the roast in the oven, Finn's muted football game, and Skylar breezing in late, wrapped in an oversized cream sweater that could have covered a car payment. She dropped a kiss on my mother's cheek, landed in her chair like she owned it, and tilted her head. "Do we have lemon water or just regular?" she asked, her voice casual, yet deliberate. I was chopping parsley at the counter. "Sink works," I said. Her face twisted, the smallest expression of disgust. As if I had suggested drinking from a puddle, Aunt Piper leaned across the table, eyes twinkling with judgment masked as amusement. "Riley, you are not still renting, are you? That's just throwing money away." I murmured that I was working on it. "Mom, busy basting the turkey," said softly. "He likes to be careful. Our planner." Then she tapped the oven door. Lightly. A punctuation mark I understood well. Subtle pressure. Invisible chains. Expectation. Skylar had always been golden. Everything I had done as a child, my allowances, my chores, my early jobs had been a lesson in responsibility. Skylar received rewards. Surprises. Recognition without work. That pattern persisted into adulthood. Small bills became larger bills. Small favors became responsibilities. My role was always clear. I am the ledger keeper. The silent support. The plan. I worked in operations for an international logistics company. Not glamorous, but precise and reliable. I tracked shipments, fixed processes, and ensured things ran on time. Numbers were comforting. Calendars and spreadsheets were trustworthy. My life was organized. My family lived in group chats, emails, and Instagram posts. That night, I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the air conditioner. Mo's words replayed, banned from Thanksgiving until you co-signed Skylar's $1 million loan. Absurd. Yes, but heavy. Not anger. Not frustration. Not panic. That old ache settled. The one I used to feel as a child when group projects were announced and all eyes turned to me. Responsibility. Obligation. Invisible weight disguised as love. Mini hook, I knew the next ask was forming. Inevitable as a train rounding a bend. Skylar would escalate her social media posts. Mo would attempt to guilt me. Finn would remain silent or offer subtle encouragement. But this time, I would decide my response. And my answer would be deliberate no. The money demands began small. Trivial even. 1 year shared phone plan. Netflix subscription. Car insurance. Deposits for apartments that were never mine. I absorbed them all. Peace was worth small sacrifices. But peace is deceptive. It only works when the rules are fair. In my family, the rules were always skewed in Skylar's favor. I remembered all the times I had lent Skylar money, $400 for books, $850 for deposits, $1,200 when her car broke down. I noted these in my phone. 2 stars next to the debts I doubted would ever return. She called it money energy. I called it rent. That night, I began planning. I would untangle every account. I would reclaim my savings. I would set boundaries. This was the beginning. Not just of leaving for Dublin, but of leaving behind decades of responsibility that were never mine to claim. The air in the apartment felt different. Lighter. I did not feel guilty. I did not feel triumphant. I felt clarity. For the first time, the future was mine to arrange, uninterrupted by invisible expectations or digital reminders of obligation. 43 missed calls could wait. The binder, the text messages, the Instagram stories, they were no longer rules. They were noise. And I had learned how to ignore noise. Holiday dinners in my family were never about food. They were a carefully staged rehearsal of our roles, a drama that had been running for decades. That Sunday was no different. The roast browned in the oven, the scent of rosemary and garlic filling the apartment. Finn, my father, sat in his chair with the muted football game flickering across the screen, his remote in hand, a silent observer. Mo hovered near the oven, issuing instructions like an orchestra conductor, precise and insistent. Skylar arrived 20 minutes late. She wore a cream-colored, oversized sweater, soft enough to be cashmere, expensive enough to shame a used car. She dropped a kiss on our mother's cheek, then sat in her chair like gravity had been redesigned to favor her. "Do we have lemon water or just regular?" she asked, tilting her head and smiling without teeth. A practiced smile that always reminded me of magazine covers. I was chopping parsley at the counter, feeling the familiar tension press on my shoulders. "Sink works," I said, carefully neutral. Her nose wrinkled like I'd suggested she drink from a puddle. Aunt Piper leaned across the table, ever watchful. "Riley, you are not still renting, are you? That's just burning money." I muttered that I was working on it. "Mom," basting the turkey, said lightly, "he likes to be careful. Our planner." Then she tapped the oven door with the back of her spoon. Lightly, almost like punctuation. That tap said more than words. Pay attention. "You are expected." Skylar had a way of taking up space without effort. Every tilt of her head, every casual laugh, every anecdote about short-lived internships or abandoned projects demanded admiration or action. My role was always clear. I organize. I pay. I support. Iandura. She dreams. I build the safety net. The family dynamic was subtle but constant. Skylar floated above expectations, and I carried the weight of theirs. Every small favor I had extended, each loan quietly documented in my notes app, had been absorbed with minimal recognition. $400 for textbooks, $850 for apartment deposits, $1,200 for car repairs. Not to mention adding her to my phone plan or paying for Daisy's vet bills. Skylar called money energy. I called it rent. Mini hook. That evening, Skylar posted on Instagram a short story, a paragraph from a blog about siblings who hoard wealth, overlaid on an image of a neatly stacked pile of coins. She tagged the family subtly, enough to make the point without acknowledgement. I scrolled past it, breathing slowly, letting it slide. Mo noticed my glance. "See? Riley, she just needs a little runway. You always take things so seriously." Her voice was light, almost comforting. but the pressure behind it was unmistakable. I had spent my entire life interpreting such words: love disguised as obligation, care disguised as expectation. The tension at the table was subtle but layered. Skylar sipped her drink with that same perfect poise, her golden child aura reinforced with every gesture. Finn chuckled quietly, likely assuming the joke about my renting was harmless. Aunt Piper whispered encouragement, praising my organization. But with the caveat, we will get to you next time. The implication was clear: your turn will come, and you will be expected to comply. Skylar leaned back, smiling without teeth, still untouchable. You'll understand when you let go a little, she said, casually, like she had read my mind, and I knew exactly what she meant. Let go of your control. Let go of the ledger. Let go of your insistence on fairness. Let go and become the background for our family's narrative. I reminded myself quietly of all the small ways I had supported her, paying for books, insurance, deposits, vet bills, and abandoned projects. Each payment had been absorbed into the unspoken expectation that I would continue indefinitely. That night, I realized that pattern needed breaking. Mini hook, the next request, the next social media post, the next subtle guilt trip was already forming like a train rounding a bend, and I had to be ready. I finished chopping the parsley. The rhythmic motion, a meditation against the weight pressing on me. Skylar chatted with Aunt Piper about her latest project, a wellness blog she had started, then abandoned, and Mo nodded along as though each failure was a minor misstep rather than a pattern of dependence. The lesson was clear in their eyes. I was to facilitate, absorb, and pay. Skylar could dream without consequence. The evening ended quietly, but the tension remained. I sat alone later, scrolling past Skylar's post, rereading the ledger in my mind. 43 missed calls from the previous week flashed in my memory. Emails, texts, and Instagram notifications had been constant. Tiny needles reminding me of the role I was expected to play. Mini hook, I realized I would need more than patience. I needed a plan. Not for revenge, not for spite, but for survival, for independence. For the first time, my own future. I lay awake that night, listening to the hum of the city outside my window. Rain on the sidewalk. Distant conversation. A dog barking in the alley. It was ordinary. Yet each sound underscored the quiet pressure of expectations I had carried. I thought about the ledger again: payments, obligations, invisible strings. I knew that if I did not draw a line soon, Dublin, my escape, and the life I had been offered would be overshadowed by family duties I had never consented to shoulder. Mini hook ending, I made a mental note: tomorrow, I would start untangling the threads. Accounts, passwords, bills, and obligations all would be separated from me. And for the first time, I would begin to plan a life that belonged entirely to Riley. Thursday morning smelled of wet asphalt and fresh coffee, a combination that always sharpened my senses. I had just poured a cup and was scrolling through emails when it appeared: Dublin rotation offer. 12 months. Housing stipend. Travel covered. Raise included. I stared at it, the cursor blinking like a metronome, marking time that suddenly mattered. Dublin. 12 months. Independence delivered in a neatly packaged digital envelope. The offer was everything I had wanted but never permitted myself to imagine fully. A life with my name alone on the lease. My responsibilities contained to me alone. Bills I controlled. Schedules I dictated. My stomach tightened. Not with fear, but anticipation. And yet, I immediately remembered my family. Even here in my quiet kitchen, Mo's words echoed in my mind: Riley, think of Skylar. You are the plan. Always the plan. I had heard that line so many times that it had become background noise. But now it felt like a weight pressing down on the edge of excitement. Skylar, golden and untouchable, had already envisioned her next steps: quitting her job, launching a wellness blog she never intended to finish, attending influencer events beyond her financial reach. And I had been trained for decades to absorb these trajectories, to facilitate, to fund, to study. I called my mother first. She sounded warm, almost tender, but the subtle undertone was unmistakable. "We need to talk after Skylar figures out her next step," she said. I pressed for clarity. She did not give it. "She just needs a little runway." "Riley, you understand, don't you?" I didn't. Not entirely. I had always been expected to understand, to anticipate, to absorb. But this time, he hesitated. Skylar had already begun plotting her escape from responsibility. She had a partner, Jordan, a 30-year-old social media influencer who framed his life like a curated feed. Their apartment was rented far beyond their means, a perfect backdrop for perfectly edited photos. They were charming, clever, and completely incapable of paying their own bills. Mo adored Jordan for his charm, his politeness, the way he smiled at her in that carefully rehearsed way. By March, Skylar had adopted a dog. By April, she quit her job, calling her boss toxic and her work soul-crushing. By May, the group chat exploded. Rent is predatory. Landlords are vampires. Capitalism is violence. I muted notifications for hours and went for a walk, counting dogs in the neighborhood rather than the financial crises streaming through my phone. By June, I had already covered 3 unexpected costs: the phone bill after Mo's car incident, Skylar's insurance shortfall, and a surprise veterinary expense for Daisy, her little golden retriever. $216, $96, $347. Individually, trivial. Collectively, suffocating. I noticed a subtle change in language around that time. Mo no longer asked politely. She wrote "we" instead. "We need to pitch in," she texted, implying all responsibility fell on me. When I asked who we meant, her response was a quiet, "Oh, Riley, don't start. You know exactly what I mean." The underlying message was unmistakable. The "we" meant me. Always me. Mini hook. And then came the binder. White. Thick. With tabs. She slid it across the table as casually as a brochure. Yet the weight of expectation seemed to make the air denser. I opened it and scanned the page's bills. Utilities. Shared payments. Phone plans. Car insurance. Vet bills. Deposits for apartments that were never mine. Each page carried numbers, confirmations, and dates, organized like a ledger of my obligations. Then I reached the final tab. Skylar's studio. $1 million? A guarantee required. Detailed runway plans laid out for a year. Mo's hand lingered on the page as she said lightly, "She just needs a guarantor to unlock better terms." Guarantor. Liability. Confidence. Investment in family. The words collided with all the small debts I had quietly absorbed over the years, all the invisible strings I had silently pulled. I closed the binder and slid it back. My voice was calm, deliberate. "I cannot co-sign alone. I love you." But no. Skylar rolled her eyes as if I had refused to share fries. Mo's voice trembled over the phone. Equal parts disappointment and pressure. Finn did not call. Aunt Piper sent a voice note about seasons and abundance. Gentle words laden with implied demands. Mini hook. I realized then that leaving for Dublin was no longer just about work. It was about finally proving I could exist without being the plan for everyone else. The weight of decades of responsibility. The microaggressions. The social media pressure. The silent expectations all had to be confronted before I could step through that door. I made a quiet mental plan that afternoon: untangle every shared account. Transfer savings. Freeze credit. Change passwords. Step by step. Line by line. I would reclaim my autonomy. Mini hook. For the first time, I considered that boundaries could exist, not as confrontation, but as necessary infrastructure for independence. By the evening, Skylar was already escalating online. Another Instagram story, a subtle narrative about siblings who hoard wealth. Jordan sent a thumbs down emoji in private chat. I ignored it. I had a bigger ledger to focus on: my life, my future, my choice to step into a city across the ocean and claim a life untainted by the family expectations that had dictated my past. I sat on the couch, thinking about the binder, the missed calls, the texts, the social media posts. Each one was noise. 43 missed calls, noise. Mo's insistence, noise. Skylar's demand, noise. Dublin, real. Opportunities, real. My decision, real. Mini hook. I understood that survival, independence, and clarity would require not just leaving, but drawing the line. And this time, I would not step back. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the soft hum of the city outside my window, rain on the sidewalks, distant chatter, a dog barking somewhere down the alley. It was ordinary. And yet, the pressure it underscored, the expectation that I would always serve, reminded me why I had to act. The ledger of debts, favors, and obligations had to be addressed, and I would, step by step, account by account, I would untangle my life. Mini hook ending tomorrow. I would start untangling the threads: accounts, passwords, payments, and for the first time in decades, I would plan a life that belonged entirely to Riley. Not to Mo, not to Skylar, not to anyone else. Mine. I had always been good with numbers. Friends and family would praise it, often without realizing they were issuing a warning. Riley has a mind for money, they said, as if skill with spreadsheets could compensate for everything else. In my family, being good with money meant being the plan. The silent stabilizer. The one everyone relied on but no one thanked. The first time I saw the full scope of what that meant, it was in Mo's hands. The thick, white binder landed on the kitchen counter with a casual slide, the kind of motion meant to appear ordinary while carrying enormous weight. He hesitated, taking in the tabs: bills, utilities, phone plans, car insurance, veterinary expenses, deposits for apartments that weren't mine. Each page contained numbers, confirmations, dates, organized meticulously like a ledger of my obligations. And then, the final tab: Skylar's studio, $1 million. A guarantor required. Detailed plans for a year of runway laid out with precision. Mo's hand lingered on the page as she said lightly, "She just needs a guarantor to unlock better terms. Guarantor, liability, confidence, investment in family." The words collided with all the small debts I had quietly covered over the years. All the invisible strings I had silently pulled. I closed the binder and slid it back across the counter. My voice, steady and deliberate, broke the tension. "I cannot co-sign alone. I love you." But no. Skylar rolled her eyes as if I had refused to share fries. Mo's voice trembled over the phone. A mixture of disappointment and pressure. Finn did not call. Aunt Piper sent a voice note about seasons and abundance. Gentle words, layered with implicit demands. Mini hook. For the first time, I understood that leaving for Dublin wasn't just about opportunity. It was about reclaiming my life from decades of silent financial slavery. Every small payment, every favor I had absorbed, every invisible obligation suddenly coalesced into a mountain I refused to climb. I remembered every loan I had made to Skylar: $400 for textbooks, $850 for apartment deposits, $1,200 for her car when it died. I had documented them meticulously. 2 stars beside each one I suspected would never be repaid. Skylar called money energy. I called it rent. The binder. The missed calls. The social media posts, the constant nudges in the group chat, it all pointed to one truth. I was expected to be the safety net indefinitely. And now, for the first time, I would refuse. The evening passed in a quiet tension. I sipped coffee, my eyes scanning the ledger of debts, obligations, and invisible strings. Skylar had begun posting more frequently on Instagram, a story about siblings who hoard wealth, a subtle jab at my role in the family finances. Jordan sent a thumbs down emoji. Mo texted with phrases like, "We won't forget this and family is everything. You are the plan." I ignored them all. Mini hook. Each ignored post, each unread message, was a small victory. A brick in the wall I was building around my autonomy. For the first time, I felt the possibility of freedom. I made a list of actions I would take: untangle shared accounts, transfer savings, freeze credit, request new cards, change passwords. Each task was a deliberate step toward independence. $216 for phone bills, $96 for insurance, $347 for vet care. Numbers alone did not matter, they represented principle, control, and self-determination. By the end of the night, I felt a strange peace. Not triumph, not satisfaction, but clarity. I was not rejecting family, not refusing love. I was rejecting exploitation, expectation, and invisibility. Mini hook. Tomorrow, I would begin disentangling my life financially, taking back control one account at a time. I stared at the ceiling, counting the tiles as if they were individual days of life I could finally design for myself. Each tile marked a potential choice, a small victory, a quiet affirmation, a step toward the life I had earned but had been denied for decades. The binder had been meant to intimidate, to coerce, to guilt me into submission. It had failed. I closed it for the night, aware that the storm would follow. Skylar would post, Mo would text, Finn might intervene with subtle pressure, but I was ready. This was no longer about negotiation or compromise. It was about establishing boundaries that could not be crossed. Mini hook. I understood then that closure was not loud. It did not come with dramatic confrontations. Closure was quiet, deliberate, and internal. It came from aligning your life with your values and refusing to be leveraged with love. That night, I lay in bed listening to the city outside. Rain tapping against the windows. Distant footsteps on wet sidewalks. My decision had been made. Dublin awaited. And for the first time in my life, I could step forward without guilt, without expectation, and entirely on my own terms. The next morning, the binder still sat on the counter, a silent accusation. The city outside was damp and gray, early autumn chill in the air, and the apartment smelled faintly of yesterday's coffee. I brewed a fresh cup and placed it beside my laptop. Dublin awaited in the inbox. A life that was mine alone, untouched by the weight of obligation. Then my phone buzzed. Skylar. Text. You're punishing me for being different. You're so selfish. Short sentences. Precise. Cutting. Rehearsed. I typed slowly. Deliberately, I'm drawing a line. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. They had spent decades blurring the line between love and obligation, between need and entitlement. Every small payment I had made, every favor, every deposit, every moment of unasked for support had reinforced the pattern Riley pays. Skylar dreams. And now, the pattern was broken. Skylar's calls came in rapid succession, ringing in my ears like a chorus of expectation. Mo's voice joined in, pleading, trembling, a mixture of panic and disappointment. You will regret this, Mo said. My voice did not waver. I am not your guarantor. I am not your salary. I am not your emergency fund. Skylar's voice rose. mascara slightly smudged from overnight tears. The kind of theatrical performance that could have earned applause on a stage. You'll understand when you let go. You're punishing me for being different. I had heard those lines before, rehearsed and polished. But the context had shifted. This time, I was not the audience. I was the arbiter. I listed it all quietly, almost mechanically, as if reading from a ledger only I could see the textbooks I had paid for. The car insurance, the vet bills, the phone plan, the deposits, the abandoned projects. I believe in you when I fund the costs, I said, not when I fund the drama. Each word was a nail in the coffin of decades of unacknowledged labor. Minnie Hook Mo tried every angle: guilt, shame, subtle threats. If you leave now, you abandon the family, she said, but I had rehearsed this line in my mind over months. In quiet corners where no one could reach me, I am leaving Monday, I said, slow, deliberate. For work, not for spite. The FaceTime window erupted. Skylar's tears were real, dramatic, precise. Jordan leaned into the frame, gesturing as though narrating a play. Mo's voice cracked, pleading. Finn finally spoke, leaning forward. Watch your tone. Riley. My tone did not change. I spoke as I had practiced. Each word a boundary. Each sentence, a rope securing my independence. This is not about revenge. This is about closure. Closure. The word had been misused in my family for years. Mo used it to demand compliance. Skylar used it to justify entitlement. I meant it differently. Closure was reclaiming agency. Closure was drawing a line where none had existed. Closure from what Finn asked casually. Trying to lighten the tension. Doing your part, I said. From being the plan. From being the background. Unpaid. Overlooked support system. The room erupted again, Mo with guilt. Skylar with accusation. Jordan with dramatic commentary. Finn with bemused detachment. I did not raise my voice. I repeated it. Deliberate. Like policy, I am not your guarantor. I am not your salary. I am not your emergency fund. I will not be leveraged with love. 43 missed calls waited, stacked like waves in my phone. I let them pile. The voicemails came in waves, first pleading, then angry, then quiet. Seething ones where Mo's breath trembled against the microphone, as if she could transmit disappointment directly. Aunt Piper texted, sweetheart. Can we talk? I stared at it, unread. Kindness in my family always came with expectations. Always a clipboard. Always a ledger. Minnie Hook. I slept with the phone in a drawer that night. The next morning, the number of missed calls had risen to 58. Group chat unread messages, 142. Skylar posted Daisy, captioned with safety and emotional health. Mo posted a meme about ungrateful children. Jordan wrote 3 paragraphs on masculinity and mutual aid. I made coffee, packed a small suitcase. I rolled my socks carefully, wiped the whiteboard calendar clean, and prepared for what had to come. Noon. My father knocked. Hard. A scene from a movie. Cinematic. Deliberate. I let him knock. I let him call my name. He jiggled the handle. I sipped coffee and waited. Eventually, he left. A text followed, coward. I typed back, boundaries. Minnie Hook. The percussive rhythm of Mo's insistence began again. Banned from Thanksgiving. Banned from Christmas. Banned from the family chat. She typed. But I was calm. Every demand. Every warning. Every label was a confirmation of the path I had chosen. By mid-afternoon, Skylar sent a contract photo. We need your signature by 5. Joint and several liability, read carefully. I read it twice. Then typed, I love you enough to not let you drown us both. She sent a voice message I didn't play. Daisy misses you. It said, I love Daisy. But I loved my future more. Love is not a payment plan. At the storage unit, I sorted my life keep. Donata. Trash. The keep pile was surprisingly small. That night, I taped my flight info to the door train 6:20 a.m. Terminal 2. Seat 21 amperes. Temporary housing in Dublin arranged. As my family held their non-negotiable meeting without me, Mo texted final offer. Sign the loan. Keep your number. Thanksgiving at Aunt Piper's, you can carve me. I typed back deliberately no. The only way to stop being the plan is to stop being the plan. Saturday morning's unusual quiet felt tangible. I began methodically removed Riley and Mo from the phone plan, $216 returned. Cancelled car insurance, $96. Streaming services, $14. 99. Each password changed. Each auto login disabled. The principle mattered more than money control. Autonomy. Separation. I transferred $132. $400 to a new bank account no family member knew about. Credit frozen. New cards requested. 43 missed calls, blinked 17 from Mo. 8 from Finn. 12 from Skylar. I ignored them all. When Finn showed up knocking hard at my door, I let him talk. Eventually he left. Texting coward. I replied boundaries. By 3 p.m., Skylar sent another contract. I didn't sign. At my storage unit, I sorted belongings into 3 piles. The keep pile was smaller than expected items I could carry into a life I would design. Walking past the corner bar, Jordan was inside telling stories. Oblivious to me, I arrived on a crisp Thursday evening. The company flat was small but perfect clean floors. Simple furnishings. A desk by the canal-facing window. The city smelled of roasted coffee. Wet asphalt. And opportunity. For the first time in years, I was setting my own rhythm. Unpacking was methodical. Each folded shirt, each closed drawer was an affirmation. This life belonged to me alone. No shared debts. No hidden expectations. No invisible strings. My morning routine became sacred tea at 7. Canal walk at 8. Work until lunch. Notifications from home appeared sporadically. Skylar posting about Daisy. Mo's guilt-laden texts. Jordan's moral lectures. I scrolled past. Unfazed. Silence was no longer empty. It was mine. The spreadsheet I'd created became my anchor. 5 lines of bills. All in my name. All de liberté. Checking each line became a morning ritual. Confirming my financial life belonged solely to me. Evenings were mine, simple meals. A candle by the window. Watching the canal reflect city lights. The hum of the dishwasher. The apartment's quiet. The absence of demanding calls. These were the rhythms of autonomy. As Thanksgiving approached back home, I felt subtle triumph. I roasted chicken. Potatoes. Green beans, a quiet personal celebration. My friend Mike shared pizza over video call. Tradition, he said. I smiled, holding up my modest plate. That night I wrote, I will live for myself without apology. I will love without financing. I will be free without guilt. Not a victory speech, a memo. A record. A tangible affirmation that I was finally responsible only to myself. Messages from home continued as expected. We won't forget this. Mo typed. You don't love me. Skylar posted. I didn't respond. Didn't justify. Didn't defend. Each ignored message was a brick in my independence foundation. I added new lines to my ledger. I won't co-sign chaos. I won't be leveraged with love. I won't trade peace for access. I won't apologize for keeping what I earn. Lying in bed that final night, listening to Dublin's gentle sounds, I understood fully being needed is not the same as being loved. Financial leverage is not love. Sacrifice does not equal care. The only plan worth following was my own.